Hey everyone, welcome to the Field Pass podcast. My name is Zach Forsyth. This is our first ever on-air experience. Thank you for joining us today. Um, During this season, we're going to be walking you through the NFL, all its ups and downs, twists and turns, interesting personalities like those who may take off their shirt and walk out of the field halfway through the season, and the most mundane breakout candidates you might see throughout the year. I'm joined by my favorite co-host on this podcast, Braden McConnell. Braden, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Brandon McConnell. Yeah, I'm here bringing football the best way possible. This is the best podcast in town.
A little bit about us. I'm a recent graduate from the Ohio State University, much to Braden's discontent, um, who would describe himself as a fan of very depressing land up north. And I'm sure and then we're also, the dynamic between us, I'm sure will flare up because we're both fans of different NFL teams as well. So I'm sure that will materialize into some great fun over the next 18 weeks. Not so much on the bye, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, Braden, how was your week to this or over this week?
Yeah, I'm chilling, bro. Yeah, just a little bit more about myself is I'm I just graduated high school. I'm a Michigan fan, and Zach's a Bengals fan. Zach's a Browns fan. I'm a Bengals fan. So this is gonna get crazy when we get into this. I mean, it'll be entertaining because when we have discussions, sometimes they get a little heated, but that's just all fun and games. That's why we wanted to do this. We wanted to bring it out, show everyone what we know.
Okay, yeah. So why don't we get started here? Everyone has been in a football drought. I mean, I think that if you're even remotely close or adjacent to listening to this podcast, you have probably been going through some sort of football related fever. I think the first Hall of Fame game, so the first football game of the preseason, had more viewers than the NBA semifinals. So there is a considerable amount of people who are just itching out their itching out their wrist trying to get their next football fix. So in anticipation of these upcoming games starting on the 7th with Lions and Chiefs, we're going to go ahead and give you our picks today, and then one storyline that we think that will actually come out of this week's game of ball. For the prime time ones, we're going to tackle them together, and then we'll start to alternate, and then I'll tell Braden how stupid I think he is, and then he'll tell me how much he wants to punch me in the face for saying that his team's going to lose in every facet of the game. But yeah, let's pass it over to Braden with the first game on our roster, Lions versus Chiefs. Braden, what do you got?
Lions versus Chiefs. I think this is the best game they could have scheduled because last year these were the two hottest teams at the end of the season. Like, because the Lions were obviously the hottest in the last 6 7 weeks of the regular season. They should have made the playoffs. They choked up in Carolina. It is what it is. Chiefs obviously won the Super Bowl. They beat my Bengals. They beat everyone, and both teams were just on a roll at the end of the season. And this is kind of like a prove it game for the Lions. It's like, can they stand with the big dogs? And it's right away because all these Lions fans are having hype, like saying that, yeah, they're going to do all this and that. And this is a game to prove it. I think they will to an extent. I think they'll be able to hang with Kansas City throughout the game. It'll go back and forth. But at the end of the day, you can't go wrong with Mahomes and Kelsey on the other end. Even if even if they're down at the beginning, they'll find a way to come back. And I believe they'll win a close one opening night, but I also believe the Lions will be like, yeah, we're here this season. Apart from different where they tend to fall and have these bad records, I think this year is a good year for them in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you with this one. I think did you give a pick as to who you think will come out on top?
I think Kansas City will win by one possession.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. I think this is the quintessential like established team versus the young scrappy guy who has been lifting weights in the spring, and now he's finally ready to show off his guns. I think basically you can't point at a person in the Lions franchise right now who isn't fully bought in. And you can find that, I think, in Dan Campbell. I think you can see that in the way that I kind of like this like weird swagger that um that Goff has, this weird charisma that he's developed. And then when you see Amon-Ra St. Brown reading off the 16 wide receiver or the 16 options picked before him, it's really encouraging to see this drive and this like level of hope coming out of Detroit. So I think that Commissioner, you did a good job in putting this one on the board. I also think that the Chiefs will come out on top, but I think the storyline that we come to will come to, I guess, delineate from this game is that if there's going to be issues with this Lions team, I don't think it's going to be sourced from Goff. I think he's developed into a very serviceable quarterback, and he's been built up kind of as not as the cornerstone, but as a functional person who can stand in and execute the plays that need to be made. Um, I think I think an interesting thought on the Chiefs, just before we keep going, is that I've really liked their picks here in this most recent draft. I really liked the Rashee Rice picked, and he's proven to be, at least in training camp, which isn't a great indicator of what it's going to look like out on the field, but he's proven to be pretty a pretty dynamic receiver. So if they can keep continuing to make these picks and build upon the Mahomes contract, which is very team favorable, I think that the Chiefs might be here to stay, but it would be nice to see someone challenging them. And I think that is what so many people are hoping for in this opening game.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it. I do think Jared Goff as well. He's starting to develop into his full quarterback potential as he's getting in. I think this year he'll show it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to take on the Browns versus Bengals game, and I'm sure this will be in contention. Um, but without any bias in my heart, I genuinely think the Browns are going to win this game.
Wait, I have a question before we start.
Uh,
As of right now, when we're recording this, Joe Burrow, we don't know if he's playing. Does your opinion change with Joe Burrow, or is this based on that he is not playing?
no, it's based on him. It's based on him not playing. Yes, but I don't think the outcome will
Okay.
change even if
All right. So,
he plays.
all right, go ahead. Go ahead.
So the reasoning behind that is like, so if Burrow doesn't play, his absence is definitely going to be noted. Like it's definitely going to be something that I think you really cannot have this Bengals team without Joe Burrow. He turned it around. He basically wretched Cincinnati out of this QB nightmare. That you guys had Andy Dalton for a considerable amount of time. Like he like
Uh,
you went from Dalton to this Joe Shiesty character who has saved Cincinnati and has become this messianic figure. And he's going to be missed if you don't play him. But also the Bengals, fans should not want him to play this game. Like I understand that the Browns Bengals game is incredibly important. There's a whole lot of smack talk that goes back and forth. Braden nearly got into a fisticuffs match with a Browns fan when we were at when we were in First Energy
hey,
last season, but I was the angel on his shoulder. There is bad blood, but if you want this to continue being bad blood, Burrow should not play this game because Ja'Marr Chase said it best himself. We want to keep this dude healthy. No one wants to see this guy hurt, and I know that everyone and their mom, when they saw that video of Joe going down with that non-contact injury, it scared the hell out of us. So we want him to be able to play his best. As a Browns fan, I just don't think he should play this game. But even if he does, I think that would be the bad decision. But also I think the main kicker behind not wanting Joe Burrow Joe Burrow not wanting to play this game is the Browns defensive tackles are looking like straight dogs right now. Like back in last season, we had the 8th worst rush defense in yards per carry. We had nearly 5 yards per carry per run. Sorry, we nearly gave up 5 yards per carry on every single attempt. That's crazy. But now, in order to address that, Andrew Berry has dove directly. He has, I think, taken up real estate in the defensive tackle market. We signed Dalvin Tomlinson. We drafted Ika. We traded for Za'Darius Smith, who isn't a tackle, but I mean, he still adds to that threat that Clowney left. We signed Harris. We lost Perrion Winfrey, who I wouldn't really consider that to be a major loss. And then we brought on Jim Schwartz, who is great gain. I think the Browns defense is going to elevate themselves to a place that we really haven't seen in a really long time. And I don't think you want Joe Burrow on the opposing end of that. So that's all I have to say about the matter, Braden. I'm sure you have something to chime in with.
That's just on Joe Burrow situation?
Yeah. Well, that's on the whole game. I think so much of it has to do with Joe, and with the way that the Browns defense is looking up. I don't think you want Burrow to play, and if he does play, I think it's going to be bad, and it's going to end up in a Browns win.
Yeah, I'm first gonna address this Joe Burrow situation. I want him to play, like, just because I want us to have the best chance of winning, but I don't want him playing unless if he is like 100% ready to. Like, I don't want him forcing himself playing in the game and then obviously getting something way worse, which this injury is already bad enough. It's not like terrible, but it's bad enough to like I don't want it getting any worse. And right, I mean, we need him in the late regular season playoffs, not at the beginning. Now, my thing on the Browns game, if Joe Burrow plays or if he doesn't, I don't think it will be a blowout. I think it'll still be close. I think the Bengals defense is good enough to keep our offense without Joe Burrow in striking distance. And you're gonna hate this even though we don't have Joe Burrow, I think we have enough weapons. I mean, we got Joe Mixon, who's a running back that can carry the load if he needs to. We got Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and we got Trent Irwin and Charlie Jones and all them too. And I believe that the Bengals will be trailing most of the game and find a way in the fourth quarter to win it because they have done it before. And the Browns these last 2 years have disappointed. Deshaun Watson, this is his first full year, but I think it's going to take him still a little bit to warm up, so that I am picking the Bengals to win in the fourth quarter by 3
Okay,
points
so
with a few.
are you giving the win later in the season in the last game, because you're definitely not getting 2 games. Like I'm willing to concede that we'll probably lose that game in the jungle. It's just how the AFC North is. Like even the Steelers team, I I don't see much promise behind them, but I'm gonna find a way to give them a win. Do you realistically see them trading games? I know that's super far down and it's hard to say, but like,
As of right now, based on the past few years, I see them trading games, but here's why. We have won the AFC North before Week 18 the past 2 years. We have not played our starters the past 2 weeks.
that's so
That
bogus.
that
Oh, that's
and
so lame though.
that I think that's what's gonna happen. I think
Whatever.
it happened 2 years ago. We went up to Cleveland with Brandon Allen as our QB, and you guys beat us, and I think that's what's gonna happen. But
I
you
think the
never know.
AFC, yeah.
I
I'm not
do
gonna
agree though.
make the
I think
projections
it
that
will
far
be
out.
split. I don't think it'll be 2-0 like it has been. I think it'll be split again. But I just think the Bengals won this one. That's what I'm thinking.
All right, you can carry us over to the Buccaneers v Vikings.
I thought I have the
Oh, sorry,
Texans
Texans
versus
Ravens. That's
yeah,
it.
Texans
Yep.
Ravens. All right. Texans Ravens. I don't know where it's at. I
It is in Baltimore.
yeah, that's what it's in Baltimore, and that doesn't help. This is the new look Texans from a year ago. Obviously they got a new quarterback CJ Stroud. It's still unclear if he's gonna start over Mills or not. John Mechie hopefully will play after not playing a year ago, and then they obviously got Will Anderson and a bunch of things. But at the end of the day, I don't trust CJ Stroud. That is not my bias from being a Michigan fan. It's from the fact that I don't know how he's gonna. He was inconsistent to a point in his college career, and I'm still not sold on the fact how he's gonna do and with not as much firepower and a team that's struggling. If he can prove it to me, that's fine to me. But right now, I don't trust CJ Stroud, and obviously the Ravens got Lamar Jackson, who's explosive enough. He has Odell. He has a couple receivers. He has Mark Andrews, like always, and their defense is decent enough where they can clamp down on the Texans. So I got the Ravens winning by 2 or 3 possessions. Maybe it's close for a quarter and a half, but I think at the end, Ravens run away with this one.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I don't think that, the preseason doesn't, you can't really use it as a litmus test for the entirety of the season for sure, but definitely not even week one. I would say, like, you're not playing your starters, everyone's not as engaged. They don't see this as a genuine football game. Um, but that offensive line looked rough, man. And CJ Stroud, as much as I love him, as much as I want him to win, and I actively want him to succeed just in life in general because he's a Buckeye and I enjoyed having him on our team. It's going to take a whole lot of adjusting and to a pocket that desperately wants to swallow you up. So I think that just with the Texans in general, it's going to be really hard to get acclimated. But I think eventually he'll come around. But having to go against this really tough defense so early on is not something that CJ Stroud is in any way capable of bringing home a win so far. Like he's a great quarterback, but it's going to take some time to learn. I just think that when you combine a pretty shut down defense up against Lamar Jackson, who has all these offensive weapons, I really like the Zay Flower pick as well in theirs. I mean,
Yeah.
their wide receiver core. Um, Lamar is definitely working with his best weapons in the entirety of his time in Baltimore. So I just don't think that even with the scrappy defense that the Texans have, um, oh, they also got rid of Okoronkwo, which kind of takes away from their capability. Um, I just don't think that they're going to be able to hang on, and I think it's probably going to be like a 14 point a 14 point spread. They're going to lose.
Yeah.
So that's it. I don't think there's much more to say about that.
No, I think we're pretty much in agreement there.
Yeah.
Right? You got Bucks Vikings up next, or
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. I have so for Buccaneers and Vikings, I just think that as I really do think that the Vikings defense is going to they're not going to like wreak they're not going to be putrid, but they're going to be considerably worse this season. They have been shedding players like it's their job. Like Zadarius Smith, I think will prove to be a bigger loss than we think. Like it was I was so surprised when we ended up landing him in Cleveland. But I just don't think that his presence is going to be is going to be forgotten, especially in these early days. And then losing Dalvin Tomlinson as well is really depressing for that franchise. So I think that as much as this Vikings defense is going to stink, um, the wide receiver room is staying dominant. And I think I think we're gonna kind of be in a position that we were in last year with Cousins just executing in the way that you need him to. Um, and I think that they're going to be able to bring home a win. I also think I think Baker will end up winning this out. Um, as of like 45 minutes ago, he hit this crazy fit like end zone, just arced touchdown, and I mean, I think people are going to be wanting him to start. Uh, I just don't, having seen him, in action, I don't think he can execute. I don't think this is going to be a feasible strategy for a really long time. Um, so I think this is pretty cut and dry. I think the Vikings will come out with a win, um, even though they've had some considerable downgrades over the offseason.
yeah. I think the Vikings will come out too. The one thing I say about the Buccaneers is that all this offseason, these weeks in the training camp, all I've seen is like Baker Mayfield this, how he's thrown 7 interceptions matter, but like we gotta forget training camp, it don't matter at the end of the day, it don't. As he's gonna win the job, he's gonna beat Kyle Trask, and I think he's gonna be the QB there decent. I think he'll be a decent QB. I don't think he'll be like anything. He'll be like an average QB for the Buccaneers. I think they'll
I don't think it's a long-term strategy. Like I don't
yeah,
I
it's
don't I
def
don't think he'll
it's
be here for a longer than a year, like a season or two.
yeah, I think he'll just be the QB that like will get that will just win them that can be there when they need him. Like just
Hmm.
a game manager almost type thing. And I think they'll play better than people think, but yeah, at the end of the day, this the Vikings offense, man. Like even though they lost Dalvin Cook, Matt Alexander Madison, their running back,
Yeah,
he
he's
he was
definitely serviceable.
yeah, he's serviceable and they got the best receiver in football, man. So you can't go against Jay Jettis, and
Yeah, yeah.
I think Vikings prevail. They win by like 10 probably.
Hmm. All right,
All
it's your
right,
move here,
so
McConnell.
Panthers Falcons.
the most
Wow,
the most high octane game.
this is probably the worst game of week 1, but it can also be entertaining because both of these teams are so bad. Well, the I mean, Panthers, you never know, but uh it really all it comes down to is the QB. I mean, we get Desmond Ridder versus Bryce Young. Which one will
Hmm.
do better at the end of the day? And I mean, Desmond Ridder, all right at the end of the last year, but it wasn't nothing special. And I think Bryce Young will outplay him in this game. And I think that's what will be the narrative is like that. Like everyone will be like Bryce Young did like something in like week 1 because I mean he's the number 1 overall pick. He's gonna have headlines. I think like he'll win the his first real test in the NFL, week 1 in Atlanta, I believe, and he'll. I think just because Desmond Ridder, I don't trust him at all. I don't think he's gonna be a good NFL QB. I'll just be real. I think Bryce Young's just gonna be enough for these Panthers to beat the Falcons, and I think they got a better, like just a little bit rest of the team than Falcons. But at the end of the day, it comes up to the QBs.
Yeah, I agree. I can't really blame you for not having much trust in Ritter. I mean, the whole QB position in Atlanta last season was kind of a wet personified as like a wet blanket. You can talk about the way that they're using Kyle Pitts as a kind of as a blocker and kind of start to scratch your head because he is such a crazy athlete. Um, I don't know if that will ever change with Arthur Smith kind of at the helm, but I don't see the Falcons coming out with a win on this one. I really like the Panthers spot right now. I mean, I Bryce Young, now that we're kind of out far from the draft, was probably the better pick over CJ Stroud. Um, I like the new coach. Um, the Panthers defense has always been something that I don't know, I like some of their young talent for sure. Uh, and I'm excited to see what they can put together because I think in a year or two they're gonna or a season or two, they're definitely gonna if Bryce Young develops in the way that we're expecting, I think that they can be like make a pretty deep playoff run. Um, but right now isn't realistically isn't their time, but I think they do get this win on the Falcons. All right, so Cardinals Commanders is another thrilling game. Um,
Yeah,
I'm going to give this win to the Commanders, just because
100%.
I think that, well, first of all, they're at home, which is encouraging for them. new ownership, which you'll have a new fired up fan base. I don't think that'll play very much in the game at all, but I think you're giving it a new spirit, and the Cardinals are kind of like fresh meat to chew on right before the start of the season. The Commanders' defense has actually been pretty good over like the past couple uh seasons, and I think that with this Emmanuel Forbes pick, the main thing they're looking for is like turnover, like acquisition, because that's really one of the main things they've fallen short of, is actually being able to develop turnovers. You've seen a lot of ambition out of Emmanuel Forbes, and he's said that he's trying to aim for defensive rookie of the year, which is at a corner position is going to be pretty hard. But I think their defense keeps them in this, and I think Howell puts up a pretty mediocre but serviceable QB demonstration. I mean, he's had a year to sit behind um, people who we probably actually might have been better than with in Carson Wentz and Heineke. But also do not sleep on Jacoby Brissett. Like if Jacoby Brissett enters this game, you do get a little bit more dangerous. Like he was able to turn now there were times in Cleveland last season where I was scratching my head and I had no idea why he did the things that he did, but he did a good job. He carried us through a period of limbo where that whole season essentially was like, who are the Cleveland Browns? And Jacoby Brissett gave him a, a a winning capability in many games. Like he executed when he needed to execute, and I think that he can do the same for the Commanders. And I um hope he can really show out. Last thing I want to touch on is one of the main reasons I think that they can lose this game is that they still have Chase Young, and man, this Cardinals offensive line is absolutely worse for wear. Like I do really enjoy like the Paris Johnson pick out of Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State is known for being this this larger than life football program with a crazy offensive line that almost like sets up their quarterbacks for failure. But Paris Johnson is a good pick, and I think that although like it's not really going to pan out for him because it's not going to be like this crazy magnificent season um, for the Cardinals organization, I think it's still going to be good for him. The one, the main issue I have right now, or like the biggest, and this is just coming from a Cleveland Browns fan perspective, Froholt, their center, is absolutely like just no hate to Froholt. I know you're not listening to this, but he's not a good center at all. I think last season there were multiple occasions in which we just like had like handoff fumbles, and he struggles to block too, from according to my knowledge. So I really don't like it, and I think that whoever Sorry Sod is going to be behind those men is going someone should take out a life insurance policy on him right now, because it's going to be a real big problem. Um, I just think the defense is going to keep him in this game, and this shoddy Arizona offense isn't going to be able to do anything about it. So Commanders, I have winning in this one.
Yeah, I got two things. One thing is I think everyone knows the Cardinals is going to be the worst team in the NFL this year. Like they are awful. Like they lost D-Hop, they lost JJ Watt. They pretty much lost everyone that was on that 8-0 team 2 years ago at the beginning of the NFL season,
Which is
except
so weird.
Kyler. I know, like even though he got a new coach, but I think that is a good thing that they have a new coach. I think they're just going to be straight offers, and that's just because they don't have the roster to win really any games. Like they have Kyler, but like who else? I mean, Marquise Brown, but like, is that enough? Two
It's
people?
not,
Like,
no, it's not enough, definitely.
yeah,
And
and oh, go ahead.
like, when do you think Kyler's coming back?
I don't even know. I don't even know if there's a timetable right now. Like, I don't know if he'll play week 1. I don't know. I doubt it, but like, I don't even know when.
Yeah, I really don't
There's
think
just
he's playing
really
week 1.
because he got hurt on the later end of the year, so like, it's hard to tell right now. So
I just don't even know if it'll be worth him coming back. Like,
yeah,
like by the time he comes back, I don't even know if there's going to be a future for this like they seriously are going to have to like act like they're not tanking in order to get Caleb Williams, and hope that the Texans also stink so they can get Harrison Jr.
Yeah. And then the other thing I got is that people forget they got their new OC is the Chiefs' old OC. I can't remember his name, but uh he developed Mahomes and he developed like he was a key part in that whole Chiefs offense. So I'm not saying that Sam Howell's going to be the next Mahomes, but like I think we got to keep an eye on him throughout the year just to see how he does with this new OC. And I think they'll win. And yeah, this is another stinker, man. But at the end of the day, the Commanders win.
You're talking about Bieniemy.
What? Oh
Uh
yeah,
yeah, Bieniemy for on the in the Commanders.
yeah.
Yeah. Who
I
could
mean,
end up
he's
eventually having the head coaching position.
yeah, because he's a good OC. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with him and Sam Howell. Yeah, like I said, like you said as well, Jacoby, you never know with him as well. So,
Yep.
all right, for the next game, it's Jaguars versus Colts. And this is like it's an interesting development what's happened with the Colts over the past week and a half with Jonathan Taylor, and there's rumors that they get Kareem Hunt, which I don't know if it'll happen. But the the new topic in Indianapolis is that they got a young quarterback. They had these old heads for 3 years, not back to back to back. Now they got Anthony Richardson, youth, and I think he's gonna develop into a good QB, but not right away. Like he's still unproven. He hasn't. I mean, every rookie QB is unproven, obviously, but like he was like other CJ Stroud and Bryce Young played great in college, had great college. Anthony Richardson, like he would have the Utah game where he's doing 360s around linebackers, and then he have a game where he came out and throw 4 interceptions. So like he just needs to stay consistent. And who knows if Jonathan Taylor's going to be playing with this whole owner situation. And the Jaguars, man, they had a great year last year. I think they're going to do it again. Trevor Lawrence is coming to light. ETN and all these receivers and Evan Ingram came into last year on their defense as well. I think Jags win big just because the Colts are just a whole mess right now.
So would you rather have Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence for the next
Oh, Joe Burrow,
years?
100%. But
Okay,
I
but
mean,
is it
Trevor Lawrence
close?
is about no, not right now. Could be, but
I don't know, man. It
I
might be
mean, Joe.
close.
Dog, okay,
I don't have any
you
dog in this.
think?
I don't have any dog in this fight. Listen, the talent I have seen out of Trevor Lawrence over in the latter half of last season and in the playoff game, keep in mind he has won a playoff game. That's not something that you just kind of ignore. They are both very talented quarterbacks, and I think the difference isn't going to be that big by the end of this season. That's all I'm going to say. Especially with
And I assume,
especially with Calvin Ridley.
yeah. And you have the Jaguars winning as well versus Colts.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
I think the Colts are kind of a mess right now. Jim Irsay is actively trying to drive away. Did you see he was oh my gosh, he spent it was $20 million donation to try and get that whale like out of
Yeah,
captivity in the
give that
ocean.
money to Jonathan Taylor. I get that he had a bad year last year, but like the
Yeah,
whole
man.
team stunk last year. It wasn't just Jonathan Taylor. Like,
Yeah,
so they had freaking Saturday as their coach. Like, bro, like, did Jonathan Taylor, I don't care. I think he will have a bounce back year. It may not be as good as 2 years ago, but I think he'll be better than he was last year if he gets on the field. And that's completely up to the Colts at this point.
they had Matty Ice at quarterback.
Yeah.
And then they swapped him
Eh,
for Sam Ellinger. Oh my gosh, that was a sad season. Sorry, Indianapolis. All right, 49ers Steelers. Um, I have the 49ers winning this one. I think that the 49ers are situated to be or kind of get like maintain their spot as one of the best teams in the NFL, and who knows if they're going to be able to kind of unlock the door past their hard stuck playoff position. I think being at Pittsburgh is going to make it a little bit difficult for Brock Purdy because I'm assuming he's going to be the starter. He's healthy, and from every indication, it seems that Trey Lance is struggling in camp, and he's not even getting like first team reps in many occasions. So I'm fully expecting Brock Purdy to start. I think Minka Fitzpatrick is going to make this job difficult for Purdy. The Steelers defense are always scrappy. I know that's just a term I use a lot with defenses that are just sneakily good, but I think that it's not going to be a very warm welcome. I think it will be close. I think it will. Kenny Pickett did have a decent. He actually was stringing together a lot of like pretty great showings towards the end of the season. I think that they'll be able to stay in it, but I think the 49ers win this by about like by 7. Um, and I think just the one thing that we do learn is that Kenny Pickett can keep pace. Who really knows what that means? It may not be enough to stay in pace in the AFC North, but I think he can he's going to be able to tough it out as much as I want to dislike and root against him.
Yeah. I think this game, it's starting to feel like it's gonna be a lot like the 49ers Week 1 game last year, where it was a scrappy game, defensive battle versus the Bears and 49ers. The weather played a lot in that game. I don't know. Who knows what the weather's gonna be like in Pittsburgh, but I think both these defenses are just so good. Like, and this will be like a 17-13, 14-10 ball game. Like it'll be low scoring in one possession the whole time. And I at the end of the day, I think the 49ers will win again, but again, both these defenses are outstanding. So I think the defense will be the real topic in this game. It will just be a defensive battle for sure. I don't see many points being scored.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I do have the 49ers coming out on top.
Yeah.
All right. The next game we got are Titans versus Saints. And I think this game's going to be a good one because on one side we got Tennessee where they got a whole bunch of weapons except a QB right now. I mean, we don't know. I assume it's going to be Ryan Tannehill. It's looking like that way. But do you want Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback? And then on the other side, Kamara's out for 3 games.
Yep.
Still unclear if they're going to get Kareem Hunt. You got Jamal Williams back there, and then they got Michael Thomas back and Olave, and then their defense. Both these defenses are average. I don't know what happened there. Okay. Both defenses are like in the middle of the league, and I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to go with the Saints in this game because of I like their quarterback situation better than Tennessee's. Now, Derrick Henry can win a lot of football games for Tennessee, but I think we start seeing him falling down in the rankings this year. I'm not saying like he's gonna tumble. I think this is like the start of where he starts to not be as good and dominant. We kind of saw it last year because he was fumbling a lot last year. Like people were learning how to rip the ball from him. So like it's gonna continue to go like that. And I think, yeah, at the end of the, I think the Saints won a close one. And yeah, I just got the Saints on top.
I actually think the Titans will win this one. I I think that people have really soured on Ryan Tannehill. I mean, because he's given them good reason, but I think he's still like a pretty decent quarterback. Like Ryan Tannehill he's not bottom 5. He's I think he's right up in there with Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr at this point might even be a little bit overrated with the way that people have been reacting to his coming to New Orleans. Like I think he's definitely not he definitely doesn't plug the hole that you've been seeing in the Saints franchise for like a decent quarterback since Breeze. He's a real bad interception problem. Um, not great accuracy. Um, I mean, he will be better. He will be better than Jameis. He'll probably be better than Taysom Hill, even since he plays both positions. But I really do see the Titans winning out this game. I think Derrick Henry, your point about him getting old is really true. He did have some issues holding the ball last season, but I think that that's not going to show in these early games. I think he's going to continue to be dominant. The Saints defense is going to give him trouble, but I think with the newly acquired DeAndre Hopkins, I think that if they can lean on him a little bit more, and if this Tennessee offense is going to look a little bit more defense and pivot towards a more pass-oriented play action offense where you're holding the ball for a little bit longer, you're winning to get looks. I think that you can kind of start to see Tannehill develop, and I think you'll really start to get more prolonged drives. So I think they come out, but I think it's close, like you said.
Yeah, I think that it's a toss-up, kinda. It's a very even
Yeah.
game.
All right. So Raiders versus Broncos brings us to the next one, and I actually have the Broncos coming out. This one, despite the Raiders having the more, I guess, like top-heavy offense. The reason behind this is mainly the acquisition of Sean Payton. I think that I mean he's a great coach. He's going to take what was one of the worst coaching situations last year with Nathaniel Hackett and really turn it into something where we can plan around Russell Wilson not being the Russell Wilson of the back of the old times. I think that they're going to develop a decent regimen around him. One of the main scary things about the Broncos, though, is that their offensive line let up the most sacks of the entire league last season, but they improved that with getting McGlinchey. So I think that they're definitely going to look a little bit better. And then I just think that this Broncos defense is a little bit more spread out in their capabilities. Patrick Surtain, I think, is really going to take a leap here. And I mean, he's already up there, but I think that I don't think he'll narrow the gap considerably between Sauce and him, but I think he's definitely going to be within a fighting distance. I think the Broncos win this by 10, just because a dominant defense, I guess a better defense is the better word for that, and then improved offensive line and improving coaching situation all adds up to, I think, a 10-point win in a Jimmy
Yeah.
Garoppolo run offense.
The interesting thing about the Broncos last year is they had the team to win, and they just flat out didn't.
What do you mean win? Like they had the team to be a competitive team, or
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
they had Russell Wilson, they had Sutton, Judy, and all them,
Judy,
and
yeah.
they had a great defense. The coaching was just awful, and I think Sean Payton turns that around. And I agree that the Broncos win, but one of those reasons also, I don't think Jimmy G is the answer in Vegas. They got Josh Jacobs, but like, did they? It feels like they downgraded from Derek Carr to Jimmy G. It doesn't. They didn't really get an upgrade, and I did. They were paying him a lot of money, so I mean, he better perform. I just don't think he will. So that Josh Jacobs and the rest of the offense was. I mean, they got Devontae Adams too, so you never know. But at the end of the day, I trust Sean Payton, and I think these Broncos will win this game. And then who knows how the rest of the season will go, but I think they win week 1.
Hmm.
All right. Now let's go into the 4 o'clock slates. And the first game that we're gonna talk about is Eagles versus Patriots. And this season is Jalen Hurts' revenge season. I think him and the whole Eagles fan base really is still salty about that holding call. And I mean, Hurts looked
It wasn't
really good.
consistent.
Yeah, Hurts looked really good in the Super Bowl, and I don't see what I think he'll continue to get better. He'll continue to improve. This offense is very explosive, and uh, now the thing that's gonna be interesting is the Eagles had a very good defense last year, but they lost some pieces in that defense. I mean, they
Mhm.
lost CJ Gardner Johnson and others. So I think the Patriots will keep this closer than people think. I don't think it'll be a blowout like it should like it would have been last year, but I think Patriots keep it close for a half, maybe even three quarters, then the Eagles start pulling away. But I think Jalen Hurts is on a warpath to get back to that big game, and then they will find a way to win. They will, and they will. Like I said, the Patriots, Mac Jones, and their defense is serviceable, so they'll find a way to scrap for a little bit. But yeah, Jalen Hurts, you can't deny him. So
Yeah, I think that the Eagles are definitely going to win, but I disagree in like the magnitude of. I think they will blaze a path through Foxborough. Like I think they're coming out the gate, and it's going to be this dominant performance of we're here, we want what we want, what we were promised last season, and I think there is kind of like this like resentment um towards, I mean, obviously the Chiefs, but like the league. And I think they really want to, really want to punch their card and let the league know they're here. In terms of personnel, I like Gonzalez. I think the Patriots got a really crazy steal on him. Um, and it was the right pick for them to make. I mean, obviously he's not going to be prepared to compete against a Super Bowl caliber team. And I just think that the AJ Brown, uh, Devontae Smith and Hurts connection is just going to develop even more. Like it's going to be even more fleshed out than it was last season. And you practically had two wide receiver ones on that team. So
yeah,
uh, I, you're not crazy for saying that. I mean, a Belichick coach defense has notoriety for a reason, but I think the Eagles are just dominant enough to go through and beat the Patriots in every facet of the game at home. Sorry, at the Patriots
yeah,
at home. So yeah, I don't blame you for it though. I mean, I have faith in the Eagles. I think they're dogs.
yeah. And I mean, I see what you're saying about how the Jalen. I mean, this offense can blow him out of the water, but I've seen Bill Belichick enough to the point where I know he can be scrappy, and he won't go down without a fight. I think that's what he's shown these past 20 years he's been in the league. But yeah, I do get what you're saying about how the Eagles could, because this can legit be a 70-0 game if the Eagles want it to be, or it could be a 28-14. You know, like
Hmm.
it it really just it depends. But yeah, I mean, I think there's good argument for both sides of this.
Yeah. All right, that leads me to Rams versus Seahawks. And I think Seattle does come out with the win on this one. Um, Geno Smith has proven that he is the quarterback to, I guess, to beat in Seattle. And before I get onto this player, let me just state that I'm so happy that Pittsburgh didn't take him. And that, of course, is Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's the first person I've ever bought a college jersey for on my own accord. I love Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I hate Notre Dame for what they did to him in that game, in the first game last season where they hit them with that dirty hit. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba isn't going to, his impact's not going to be immediately felt during this game, but I think he's going to get a couple looks where you're going to be able to say like that dude's nice, and you're going to be able to see him. Although he's probably going to be used in the slot, I don't, I guess I don't have any issue with him doing that because he's shown how dynamic he can be. Once he gets that ball, the yak on that man is ridiculous. So you could see him develop like something similar to like a Debo Samuel, where you just get him the ball as soon as you can, and then just see what you can do with it. If the ball is in Smith and Jigba's hands, you're going to be all right. Um, but like I said, I don't think that's going to show during this game. I just think that the position that the Rams are in right now, with a coach that we're like not even sure wants to be around like for the next couple of years because like he's considering retirement at least for a little bit. Um, and I mean Cooper Kupp has had some injury issues, and Matt Stafford like had like a weird baseball injury last season. I just
Yeah,
think
he's always getting injured.
the Rams got what they wanted, and they did it. Like they I guess they sold the house, and I think that this is just the reality that they have to live in until they can enter into a spot where they're competitive again. But I don't think that's gonna be moved without that's gonna materialize without some considerable time spent sucking, to put it
Yeah,
in English.
I I do think Seattle wins this game, but I think the Rams will be better than they were last year. Last year, everyone and their mother got injured on that team.
Hmm.
So, and I don't think that happens again. I mean, Cooper Kupp, I think will be fine. I think Stafford will be fine. And Stinson Bennett looked good enough to where I can see him coming in. But yeah, I do think the Seahawks have the team. They got a decent defense. Kenneth Walker, Geno, DK, JSN, Tyler
Yeah,
Lockett.
Kenneth Walker's a dog.
Yeah, they got a team to do something in the NFC, and I think they will. And I see them winning like a close game, but they end up pulling away in the end. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams win either. Just I mean, they got the best defensive player in football, Aaron Donald. So he's a game changer, and but you never know. So I do think the Seattle win, but I see the side of where the Rams win as well. And then for
Agree.
this is the game of the week in my opinion. Dolphins versus Chargers. I mean, the I think it speaks for itself. I mean, we got two high flying offense, very exciting offenses. We got Herbert versus Tua. We got Hill and Waddle versus Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and now Quentin Johnson. We got Eckler, and this is gonna be a fun one. I think this is like kind of like a Big 12 and college football type game, a shootout where it's a bunch of offense. Like both teams score 30 plus points, but excuse me, the deciding factor in this game is the Chargers let everyone down in these big games, and I am simply going to pick the Dolphins. This is based on the fact that I can't trust the Chargers to win anything at this point because they blow it every big game they have, and I think Tua in this Dolphins offense will be the last team with the ball and the last team to win it.
Yeah, I think that as much as I want the Chargers to win and I want Justin Herbert to come in and like I'm like a tortured Justin Herbert fan. It's always so hard because he has teleportation powers with the football and it doesn't do any like he's never put in a position where he can win. I I mean, I will say that that playoff loss was super embarrassing. So embarrassing. Like it can't be overstated. Like some of the wins we saw the comebacks we saw last season were crazy. I think that that's almost worse than the Vikings game, where the Vikings
Oh,
came back
it's
against the
the
Colts. Like
yeah,
it,
the Chargers game was a lot worse because I mean it was about the same amount of points, and that was in the playoffs. Like, how
yeah,
are you blew a 27-0 lead in the playoffs? Like,
yeah. And
that's awful.
Staley's just not that dude. I, I don't like Brandon Staley. He makes some crazy decisions. He gave me hope in my heart when the Browns played him last season because he went for it on fourth instead of punting, and we stopped him. And then Cade York, chief bag seller, came and missed that. But that was an awful decision, and I just don't think he is capable of leading this team to a deep playoff run. Um, I think that the Vic Fangio hire is really going to light a fire underneath the Dolphins defense. I mean, Um, I don't know how it will look like if it was like if it will look any different from when they had Brian Flores, but I think it's a good decision they have. I am sad that they're missing out on Jalen Ramsey now late into until late in the season, but I do think that the Dolphins end up winning this one. Although I have bought into the belief that the Dolphins aren't gonna be a good team this year. I think this is one of their very few wins.
Well, that's interesting.
Mhm. All right, Packers versus Bears. This is always a fun one. A lot of. I mean, this is like one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL, if not the biggest. I'm sure if you live in Midwest, it's like not really. I mean, kind of like it just in the obviously in the Minnesota Illinois area. This is like the quintessential rivalry. Packers Bears. I do think the Packers end up taking this one. I don't think that the spell is going to be reversed. I think that Jordan Love is that guy. Like I think he's actually kind of he's
A
established.
bold take.
If you're sitting under if you're sitting under Aaron Rodgers for a decent considerable amount of time, I don't think he's like going to be don't get me wrong, I don't think he's going to be like competing with like Trevor Lawrence, but I think he's definitely going to be better than like he's certainly going to be better than Sam Howell. I think he's going to be better. I think he will be better at least equally as capable as Kenny Pickett. I think And I also think that with this young offense, like they have potential that's kind of hidden under the surface. Like you have Romeo Dobbs, who is pretty great as a wide receiver too, and then Christian Watson, who was electric and kind of helped to like after that first drop and kind of Aaron Rodgers just getting him the runaround like on whether or not like he's going to be even playing football anymore. I think that Christian Watson kind of was shoved into the league and he started to swim on his own. I think he's going to be a great weapon for Jordan Love to have. Um, I think Fields does heat up. I think this is Fields' real debut. I just don't think that he's going to be able to produce in the way that is necessary against a team that has had their number for so long. And I don't necessarily believe that the DJ Moore acquisition is going to prove to be as dynamic as so many people will think. It's going to be the best wide receiver he's been working with for a really long time, but I don't think that at least this point in the season, the connection between Fields and DJ Moore is going to be super automatic. So I just don't think they have it all figured out yet, and I think that Jordan Love is going to be able to produce.
Uh, my take on the Bears Packer games, I do agree, and I think Green Bay is gonna find a way to win. I mean, I'm not, I'm not completely sold on Jared Love. I think he'll be good enough to win this game. It'll take him a little bit to warm up in the NFL, but like, yeah, Justin Fields, it'll take him a second to warm up and everything, and I think the Packers have enough around them to be able to win this game because the Bears are still lacking in some spots. That's just my take on it.
The rebuild is not done. The rebuild is not over, Chicago. I'm sorry.
Next up, we got our primetime games. We got our Sunday night and Monday night. I'm gonna start off with the Giants versus Cowboys, and I mean NFC East, that's gonna be another interesting division. It's another two playoff teams from a year ago. We got, I mean, Giants Cowboys. You don't really need to say much about the rivalry there. They don't like each other. Um, I mean, these two teams, they got the Cowboys and Giants. They got good enough defenses where they can hold, and I just see it very similar, which a lot of these games are this week. It's down to the quarterbacks versus Daniel Jones versus Dak. And the reason I'm leaning Cowboys is because I like Dak more than Daniel Jones. Now, I don't like Dak that much as a QB in the league, but I think he is better than Daniel Jones, and I think Daniel Jones got paid a lot of money for no reason at all because I mean he's just a game manager,
It
but
is pretty crazy.
that's another
Yeah,
conversation though. But like
he
at the
got
end of the
paid.
day, a like Saquon Barkley couldn't get paid, but Daniel Jones could. Like that's just the way this league is. But I have more faith in Dak, and I think they win a close one. Yeah, at the end of the day, I look at the quarterbacks, and Dak's one step above Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I agree. I don't even think you need to limit it down to just the quarterback. So I think you can definitely looking at their defense, you do have some decent young talent. I liked Kayvon Thibodeau last season. I mean, he wasn't as dominant as some of the other young talent. As much as I personally have a distaste for Aiden Hutchinson did outperform him, as did Sauce Gardner. Um, but I think he has potential. I think he can really solidify himself during this season. Um, the defensive pieces are really just unparalleled though. Like Micah Parsons, ridiculous. Like
Yeah, he's a
what
straight
more can be
dog.
said about Micah Parsons? And now you're adding Stephon Gilmore into the mix, who
I
is
forgot about that.
yeah, who is going to be
He-
great at playing man on these wide receivers who really don't really have much to their name. I mean, like if you have like Stephon Gilmore on Sterling Shepard, man, it's a wrap. Like you just can't do anything about it. So, I mean, Daniel Jones can run. Uh, Saquon Barkley is a like a top three running back in the league right now. I would say. But even then, you have Tony Pollard, who is an incredibly dominant player as well, who we really haven't been able to see with the weights off his ankles yet. So I'm really excited to see how the Cowboys do this season. I mean, you have heard the rumblings of it's our season again. I mean, I don't,
They
I'm
say that
not gonna,
every year.
I know, right.
Like,
I'm definitely not gonna get fooled into that, but like, I just really like it. I mean, of course you have CeeDee Lamb, who is kind of at like the apex of his career and has only been getting better. So I think on both sides of the ball, the Cowboys just haven't beat. But I don't know, man, Brian Dable, he's gonna find a way to keep it close. So
yeah.
as much as I like the Giants and I like Brian Dable, I do think that the Cowboys win this one out.
All right.
And then Bills Jets. Um, I actually this you might like Dolphins Chargers, but this is my personal favorite of this week. Like Bills, I think this is going to be the most exciting game in terms of like I almost think that it's like to a lesser extent the kind of like the Lions um Chiefs game because I mean the Jets went to being like really bad with Zach Wilson to now being potentially amazing, and now you're going up against this team who has been amazing and who is starting to show like weaknesses or like areas of exposure in their armor. Um, so I'm gonna actually take the Jets on this one. I think the Jets come home with this. I do think that this Dalvin Cook like deal is going to happen. I think that they're going to find a way to bring him in. And I just really think that the Wilson Rogers connection will not be able to be overstated how effective it really is. I think he's trying to turn like he has this idea of who he wants Garrett Wilson to be, and I think Garrett Wilson has a capacity to exceed in every single like every single box that Rogers wants to check. I think that Garrett Wilson can do that. So I'm really excited for this. And then again, I just don't trust Josh Allen against arguably the best corner duo in all of the NFL right now in Sauce Gardner. Well, mainly personified in Sauce Gardner, but I just don't trust him against that cornerback room. Um, we've seen Josh Allen struggle with interceptions, and I know the Josh Allen defenders are going to come at me for this one. Your dude throws the ball to the other team way too much. That's just the truth. It's just that's you can't you have if Josh Allen wants to develop more as a player, he has to get better with his decision making. And you can't make those. It's your first game out of the gate, and you're against this young stud who will embarrass you if you give him the opportunity to. And I think Josh Allen will just give him too many of those opportunities. So when you have a team that's basically impossible to find the holes in them against one that has consistently over the later ends of the year shown that they can be beaten, I think the Jets take this one.
All right, I'm gonna give you my full take on it. Obviously the new look Jets this year, they got a QB. They had pretty much everything else last year, and the QB was the position that held them back. And they went out and got an MVP type quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. And they obviously have a lot of hype around them. But I'm comparing this game to the Broncos and Seahawks game last year. And I'm like just like in the levels, like Russell Wilson, he was going on the road. I don't are going into Monday Night Football with a new team, brand new coach, and they ended up falling short. I think it's gonna be very similar because the Bills have proven they can win games.
Hmm.
Now what? Now even if you're not you're a Josh Allen hater, I would call you, but like, uh, you
Yeah.
they can win games. We know that for sure. And these Jets, I think it's gonna be similar, like a feeling out process, like kind of like how the Broncos even had, even though they didn't like end up ever winning. It felt like that first game was a feeling out process. I think that's what happens this time, and just because of that, I have the Bills, but like. I think this Jets team will be good. I just don't see him winning this first game
Hmm.
altogether. I think the Bills will prove that hey, we still here because a lot of people are counting them out um in the AFC race.
I'm not counting them out. I mean, Josh Allen is still like a top, I don't know. I put him at like 5 quarterback. Like, that might be a hot take, but like I don't, I'm not like super high on him. But they do have um stuff on Diggs. I mean, Diggs is a
A dog.
amazing playmaker. So I mean, if you have him, he's going to be able to make those contested catches in many a case. Um, I just if I'm gonna have to come down on either of these cores, I'm taking Sauce, but I think it will be close. Like
Yeah.
I think it will be a pretty awesome game. Like I will be glued to my couch. I'm not
Well,
leaving.
you're not.
I'm not
Wait.
leaving. My butt is not coming off that seat during that game. I'm excited to see Garrett Wilson and Ohio State stud just really go off, and uh, I'm excited for this connection. What were you saying?
Yeah. This I agree. This and the Dolphins Chargers game are going to be the best two games, and I'm going to be watching both of them. This like Aaron Rodgers' new team. This hasn't. Like it's kind of like Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Like this is gonna be strange because he's been on one team his whole career, but like, and who knows if he'll win a Super Bowl. But yeah, I can't go against something that I already know and that the Bills know how to win games. At the end of the day, that's just who I got.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, thank you guys so much for listening to our first episode. We're super excited to be here, and we're excited to be riding out this season with you. Let us know if there's anything that you violently disagree about. Um, I'm sure that we've said a bunch of things that we'll probably regret going on into the season, but we uh we're about as well equipped as you are in terms of understanding the craziness that is going to befall us this season. So we're super excited that you chose to be along the ride with us, and we hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you for week 2.
Yep. Boom.